We're starting today the third part of the summary of Sefer Yehoshua. We're holding in Perek Hey, whereby HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Metzave Yehoshua to take Charvois Tzurim Veshuv Mul Es Ha'om Hazeh Shenis. Yeshua goes to Givas Ha'arolois, and he's making a Milo, and he's continuing on. Now, the Radak is Masber. We're talking about the date is right now Yud Aleph Benisan. They're coming in to Eretz Yisrael, they're crossing the Yarden on Yud Nisan, and they're coming in on Yud Aleph Nisan. The Radak comes along and says that when they were in the Gilgal, Kadosh Baruch Hu was mitzaveh them, because they crossed the Yarden, as we said, in Asir l'Chodesh Nisan. In Gimel Yomim, I'm quoting, Hoyolem lios nechoinim la'asois ha'pesach v'lahazois v'litboil, the Radak explains that when they're coming out of Mitzrayim, throughout the journey in the Midbar, there were many instances where part of the kohol became Tomeh Mes. And V'shiyuni mulim kulom kodesh akrivu ha'pesach beyudalad. So they have to become Tohor, and they have to be Markiv Korban Pesach in an Yud Aleph. They have to be Markiv Korban Pesach on Yudalad, which is Erev Pesach. Says the Radak, brings a Chazal, that B'Yud Nisan they made a Hazoas Gimel. We know we need for Meis, we need to Hazoas Gimel, Hazoas Zayin. And in Erev Pesach they made the second Hazoas Zayin. And that's you need Ben Hazor LaHazor, the Aloch is you need Alad Yomim. And during the days from Yud Aleph, which is this Perek Hey, until Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, Yud Daled, they were Mal B'nai Yisrael. Now, the question is, why do they have to be Mal? According to the Radak, and I'm wrapping it up, they only Mal those who weren't Mal Me'olim, because those who were Mal in Mitzrayim were already Nemoilim. And what does it mean, Mul Ha'om? It says in the Pasuk, Ki Mulim Hoyu Kol Ha'om HaYoisim, V'chol Ha'om HaYeloidim B'midbar Lo Yimolu. Radak says as follows: those who were Mal in Mitzrayim did not have to be Mal. And the Radak says the Shenis means that we are Mal only those people will soon see, Arboim Shana B'midbar, since either Chet HaEgel or Chet HaMeraglim, which is a machlekes, two svaras in the Gemara in Yevamis. There were Nezufim, and therefore Ruach Tzfoinish, which is Merape, anybody who is Nimoil, Lo Yinoshva, therefore they weren't Mal. Okay, now the Chazal bring down, there is a Shita in the Gemara in Yevamis, that what it says, Mul Esa'om Hazeh Sheinis, it's seeming like there is some kind of a secondary, and they say some that it was, the Gemara has a tzad, the one on the Omar, that means to say, that we know that every Milah contains two halakim, the Chelek HaMilah, which is Asoras HaOrla, and the Chelek HaPriya, which is Tesefes Kedusha. The Gemara comes on Yevamis and says, Aleinit no Priya L'Avram Avinu. When Avram Avinu had the mitzvah of Milah, he did not have the mitzvah of Priya. Therefore, Shuv Mulas Ha'om Hazeh Shenis means that they were only mitzvah to be make the Priya. Says the Ramban, the Radak, v'nitchi dvorim elu, and the Avade, they were nimoilu, and Priya Samila was given, and Avram Avinu Pora Milosa, he brings down the Medrash Rabbah in Parashas Lech Lecho that Avram Avinu was Mal. Okay, so there's a machlekes, comes out as machlekes Rishonim, and the machlekes is really a machlekes in Yerushalmi. It says, Himoil Yimoil, it says in the parasha of Avram Avinu, Vayom Hashem L'Avram es Brisi Tishmoil, Yimoil, Himoil with a Hey, Yimoil with a Yud, Yelid Beischo, and the Mishnah brings down two pshitas. One shita, Imoil Milo, Echot LeMilo, Ve'echot LePriya. Another shita is, Echot LeMilo, Ve'echot LeTzitzim. A third shita, Yimoil Limo, only somebody who is Moul, could be Mal, oral cannot be a Moil. And the Meforshim with the Yerushalmi, the Korbanei, the Pnei Moshe right there, the Yerushalmi says that, at the beginning of Megillah, the Yerushalmi says that one who learns Priya holds that we need no Priya L'Avram Avinu. Imo Elimo said to Avram, and one Lemila, one Priya, Avram Avinu indeed did make Milah. And therefore he learns from the pasuk Echad leMila veEchad lePriya. One Mila is for Mila, one Priya, and Avram Mila was really mitzvah. And Shitas Rav is the second mandoma in Yerushalmi. It says, Lo Yinitno Priya Lavram Avinu, therefore he learns one goes on Milo and one goes on Tzitzim, or one goes to be Melamed, that only Hamol, Yimol, only somebody who's Mo could be Mal. So this is the Shaila, what was. According to the Ramban al Torah says that the Milo, the Ramban is Chol Ariches, that in Matan Torah HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mitzvah to Moshe that the mitzvah of Priya would only be Chal when they go into Eretz Yisrael. This is how the Ramban wants to learn Pshat. We went through the whole Shita Sameiri and the Yam Shloimeh and discussed several nafkaminas. According to the Ram, just to mention one thing, Shita Sarama, the Bnei Keturah or Hogor, which is Keturah, the Arabs, Achayev B'Mila, and there's nafkamine Bazman Hazeh Aloch Al-Maisa. We know that the Arabs are Nimoel. Do they make Priya or not? If you hold Leinit no Priya Lavram Avinu, so they are Bnei Keturah, they know Shayches, the sons of Hogor, therefore the Araber, the Ishmaelim, which have Chiyuv Mila, only have Mila without Priya. If you say Avram Avinu is given Priya, like the Yerushalmi, so, and according to the Radak, therefore Bnei Keturah are Chayev B'Priya. We went on weiter that talking about the Pesach, Mitzrayim, and the Pesach of Gilgal. In Parshas Boi, it says, "V'hoyo kisavayo la'oretz u'shmartim es ha'avoda hazelis. V'hoyo mukiyom elechem b'nichem ma ha'avoda hazelis lachem v'martim zevach Pesach Hashem." And Rashi says, "V'tov la'oretz," and Rashi comes along and says, "Le'nischayvu Yisrael in Midbar Elo Pesach Echot She'osu B'Shon Hashnis Al Pnei HaDibur." Rashi comes along and brings the Mechilta that the Chiyuv is Korban Pesach is pending Bias Haaretz. And therefore, Kol Zman that didn't come to Eretz Yisrael, they're really not having Pesach. Lema'et, the second year there was Al Pi HaDibur, a special tzivui that they had a Pesach on the second year. But other than that, the entire 38 years are in the Midbar. There is no Chiyuv of Akros Korban Pesach. The reason for that being is because the Torah says in the beginning of Parsha of Korban Pesach, "V'hoyo kisavoyo elo oretz." Problem is that when you look in Parshas Baal Leischo, where the tzivu is of Pesach Sheni, it says, "V'yomer Hashem el Moshe b'midbar Sinai b'shona hashenis." Okay, "Vayasu es bnei Yisrael es haPesach b'moyado b'chodesh hazeh ben arbaim." The whole thing, and "Vaydaber Moshe el bnei Yisrael vayasu es haPesach b'rishon b'Abosor," and it says b'feirush that Bnei Yisrael kechol asher tziva Hashem es Moshe kenosu Bnei Yisrael, there was a tzivui and of making Pesach even before they come into Eretz Yisrael. Rashi is oimed on this, and Rashi comes along, and the truth of Yom Ezir Darkoi, Rashi in Parshas Boi quotes the Mechilta that the tzivui of Korban Pesach, as we said, is only totally in Bias Haaretz. Okay, so Memele in Midbar they're really potter, whereas Rashi in Parshas in Bamidbar says that there was a Gnai, that they weren't Mekayim in the Midbar, and Rashi says maybe they were Mekayim in the Midbar. Was it one time? Wasn't it one time? And we went into this entire sugya, and we came by at the end of the day that if there was a chiyuv of Akrovas Pesach Bamidbar throughout the years of the 40 years of the Midbar or not, is a machlekes really a machlekes of Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. According to Rabbi Shmuel, they weren't chayev, and according to Rabbi Akiva, they were chayev. Therefore, we suggested, and this is Be'emes is the Rambam Nakadomati al Chazoko and the Ramban and the Ran in Sefer Mafteach, that Rashi, and this is Dark Shel Rashi. Rashi in Parshas Boi brings the Mechilta, Stam Mechilta. State is more in Sanhedrin says Stam Mechilta is Rabbi Shmuel, and Rabbi Shmuel is the one who says that they weren't Makav in the Midbar. That's what Rashi says. It's totally in Biasor. That's totally the more in Kedusha Machlekes Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. Whereas Rashi in Parshas Baal Leischo, and Rashi says in Mukdam Muchal B'Torah, it's from the Sifri, and the Sifri is Stam Sifri is Rabbi Akiva, and according to Rabbi Akiva, there is the Chiyuv to be Makav Korban Pesach. It's a shtickle. I mean, Rashi is Mezakesh totally betray. It's a Machlekes. But this is what we brought down the state in Kadmoinim Shed, that Rashi is really bringing the machlekes of Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. Okoponim here, they're coming here that to say to mark of the Pesach. The question is, on the tzad the Gemara that Rabbi Mishal Bamidbar, they didn't really make, they were honest to make the Pesach. Why? The question is, if what happened if the oinus is the oinus, it's not in the Gemara in Yevamah says the story that the tinuk she'over chavushim beis asurim, and the father could make the Pesach. If the reason why they didn't make Pesach in the Midbar is because leinosh v'ruach tzveinis, there were areilim, and in Pesach is halach of kolor leyochal boy. The question is if there is a ptur of oinus, and if ptur of oinus, so lichura, even if those who were nimel, were born in the Midbar, have to make the Pesach, because the oinus of leinosh v'ruach tzveinis should not really become a reason for them to have kol oral leyochal boy and a bais which has an oral. Bottom line, there's two shittas. If the 38 years in the Midbar, and if they didn't make the whole 30 years and they did not make Korban Pesach because they couldn't make the Milah because leinosh v'ruach tzveinis, and they didn't have a ptur of oinus, and the shittas atesis in Yevamas, they were makriv the Korban Pesach were only moilim, and entire 40 years in the Midbar. Then when they came to the Gilgal, they made the mitzvah sese of Milo Bashenis and Keilu Chosei, and in the 40 years in the Midbar, according to Tesis comes out, they did make it, but it was a b'diavad, because they did have Arelim, although those Arelim weren't me'akav them, defraining them from making Korban Pesach, yet it was a matzah of b'diavad. So now Yeshua, you come in and is mal all those children that weren't mal in the Midbar, although they made a Pesach prior. That was a chiddush, because Pashtas the Mikroas, they did not make Korban Pesach. But Tesis suggests, of course, they did make. Of course, they had a ptur of oinus, but it was only b'diavad. And here is the first time when the makri l'chatchila. Now we went into the next psukim. What is it? Says that mimocharas haPesach. It says vayoichlu ma'avur ha'oretz. They're starting in for Tfuah Chadosha. What is mimocharas haPesach? So we spoke about it, two full shiurim. What is the called the mocharas haPesach, and the whole sugi in Kiddushin, the Tesis, Machlekes, Tesis, Ibn Ezra, the Rambam, and Pashtes. They did not eat Korban Pesach. The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah seeming to be that the shittis like Rabbi Shmuel, or the reason why they did not eat until mocharas haPesach is not because they had man bekeileihem. Some pshat in the Gemara is more throughout the whole long Masech, the whole long conversation in Masech's Kiddushin. More says because the man which they brought down, the only vayishbasam man in mocharas, the reason why they did not need to eat from Tfuah Chadosha is because they still had leftover residual till mocharas haPesach. And the Gemara Rosh Hashanah seems to be saying that the reason why they didn't eat is not because they had the man, but the reason is because of Isur Chodesh. We know that until you makriv the Korban Oimer, and the Isur Chodesh is not pokas. So Michoel came to Israel and Schayv in Isur Chodesh, we'll soon see. So therefore, the time of them not eating till Tfuah Chadosha, till Mimocharas, is Mimocharas haPesach is the day after. It's the day after the Yom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach to Zion, where the mark of the Korban Oimer, once the mark of the Korban Oimer, they are allowed to eat from Tfuah Chadosha. The problem is that the pasuk in Parshas Maseh says, Vayisu Miram says, B'chamisho Asor Yoim Mimocharas haPesach, seeming to say that Mimocharas haPesach is the morning after the Korban Pesach, which is Tezvov and not the Zion. So we have a confusion. How do you learn Pshat in Tezvov and Zion? And the Rishonim come along and say, Taisus brings down that from the that there's a difference between Lashon Torah L'chud, Lashon Chachomim, Lashon Neviim L'chud, and Lashon Chachomim L'chud. And there is, the emphasis, it's not the Taisus, it's the Yerushalmi. Right away, the Yerushalmi in Maseches Chala asked the Kasha about the Mocharas haPesach, it was Shishosor, Chamishosor, back and forth. The Kasha is the Kasha of the Yerushalmi. And the Yerushalmi, if it's Lashon Torah, Lashon Neviim, it's a Machlekes Rabbi Loz and Rabbi Yossi in the Yerushalmi. There is a fascinating word from the Mikna and Makna, and the Makna says that when it says in the Ksuvim, Mimocharas haPesach, Pesach means Achilas Korban Pesach. The only difference is that the Matan Torah by Pesach Mitzrayim was prior to Matan Torah. And prior to Matan Torah, the halacha was Laila Oilech Chachar Hayom. That's what we know. So we mele the Pesach, we mark the Korban Pesach Yudalet. So the breaker of Tesvav, the Laila of between Tesvav and Tezayin, he was a chelik from Yom Yudalet. Okay, and the breaker of Tesvav is Yom Shalom Asa Pesach, because the Laila is Laila Oyel Chachar Yom, whereas the pasuk in Yeshua is talking about the Tkufa that right now it's 40 years after Matan Torah, and the Aloch is Yom Chachar Laila, and therefore since Yom Chachar Laila, Memochas Pesach would be designed. And we were discussing the inyan of Eretz Yisrael Muchzokas Ilonu Ma'aveseinu. We saw it in several sugyas, and we just to wrap it up in a nutshell, the whole Gemara of Muchzokas Ilonu Eretz Yisrael is Muchzokas Ilonu Ma'aveseinu. What is the achiza of Eretz Yisrael? The Gemara says Muchzokas Ilonu Ma'aveseinu. What is the achiza of Eretz Yisrael, which is again has some kind of halachic ramifications. So this is clear that Eretz Yisrael is Muchzekes Lonu from the time of Avram, and Klal Yisrael had the full bailas from then, and therefore the Yoitze Mitzrayim, when they're getting into Eretz Yisrael and they're taking Kibush, it is Muchzekes Lonu B'Dein, and it has a deen of Muchzek B'Yodim. Even those people who they died in the Midbar, the Meisei Midbar, they were able to give the Bechor Pishnaim. We know the Bechor is Nekel Pishnaim only B'Muchzek and not Beroi, and therefore the question is, the Chelik, if the Yoitze Mitzrayim is Chalko Oretz, if the Chelik of this Yoitze Mitzrayim who's going to die in the Midbar, he has children, his children are not B'Chet HaMeraglim, they wouldn't die, if he's Moirish Pishnaim or not. So if the Yerusha would only kick in once they will come to Eretz, he has a schus, so Mela is considered Roy, like anything, a future, post-data check, something which is Neufel Achar Mitzvah, whereby the Bechor is not Neufel Pishnaim. However, since we say Eretz Yisrael is Muchzekes Ilonu Ma'aveseinu, so Mimela, the Sugya Sagmora says that there were Moirish Pishnaim in the Nachlo, because the Eretz Yisrael, what they had, the schus in Eretz Yisrael, was already Muchzekes Ilonu Ma'aveseinu, as a din of a Muchzek, not a Roy. Same thing, the Nochri that was living in Eretz Yisrael, which went through the whole Sugya in Avodah Zarah, if he is able to answer the Asheris in Eretz Yisrael. If the halacha is ein adam oiser dover sheina shalei, so if Eretz Yisrael is muchzekes ilonu ma'aveseinu, so it comes out that all the bnei Knan that dwelled in Eretz Yisrael from the time of Avram Avinu until Klal Yisrael comes in right now with Yeshua to take it over in Milchemes Lamed Alf Melochim and to conquer Eretz Yisrael, they could have not asked the eitzim be'isar v'tezor be'isar asheira, and the reason why is because it's muchzekes ilonu ma'aveseinu. The halacha is ein adam oiser dover sheina shalei. The Gemara comes along and says, with the exception of Mipalch Yisrael or Egel, is Galadite Tenichales, it could be Shlichusayu, but in essence, the halacha is that the goy cannot create a shiur of Avodah Zarah in the eitzim of Eretz Yisrael, because the karka is a karka that belonged to Klal Yisrael all along, even though they did not come into Eretz Yisrael yet, and therefore it's ein adam oiser dover sheina shalei. That's the halacha of Muchzekes ilonu ma'aveseinu. We saw a third nafkamina, a tvuo shegodlo in Eretz Yisrael, and the Gilgul, we're talking about the Chiv Chala, Chay is totally in Gilgul, and the Chala is, Klal Yisrael comes into Eretz Yisrael, and they make Chala from the Tvua which grew prior to where the Kibush in Eretz Yisrael, so Mimela is considered a Tvua Shegodlo B'Yad Yisrael, because Muchzekes ilonu ma'aveseinu. So even though the actual growth of this Tvua took place before Yeshua crossed the Yarden, harvest the wheat and the tvua, yet it's not considered. If it would have been considered b'karka shel akum and Yisrael makes only the gilgul, it wouldn't be chayav b'chala. But being that muchzekes ilonu ma'aveseinu, the tvua is called tvuas Yisrael, therefore the chayav in chala. So the shverkeit comes out, the sugya in Rosh Hashanah, seeming to say that if they would have bought a tvua, the Gemara says, how do they bring the chodesh? Where they have a tvua? If they bought it from akum, it's called Tvuas Akum, and Akum is Tvuas Akum, and it's not Chaya B'Chala. The question is, what happened to the din Muchzekes ilonu ma'aveseinu? It's a Teisus, there's Teisus Kasha in Rosh Hashanah in Daf Yud Gimel, and Teisus asks the stira, and it's seemingly been to say that the Chiluk is in Muchzekes ilonu ma'aveseinu legabe certain dinim. there is a halacha of, if we we went through the dates, Kodesh Baruch Hu says, L'zarcho eten es ha'oretz azois, that was in Parshas Lech Lecha, when Avram goes out from Choron to Eretz Yisrael. Avram was 75 years old. The Pasuk says in the Pasuk, L'zarcho nosati es ha'oretz azois. He's talking about in Bris Ben Abisorim. Pashtes, Bris Ben Abisorim, it was 11 years later when Avram was 86 years of age. Lefi Rashi, Lefi Seder HaMikroes, if you don't go with a mukdom muchabater. The problem is that in the Bryce in Seder Oilom, he does say that Bris Ben Abisorim took place when Avram was 70, because Bris Ben Abisorim was 30 years before Avram, before Yitzchak was born. It says, the only way you can come to the Cheshbon of Bamos B'Shleishim is 30 years. Avram was 100 when Yitzchak was born. It's often a Pesukim. It comes out, if you go, the Brisa says, you reckon, from the time of Bisman Abisom, Avram was 70 years old, and therefore you have to say, like according to one side in the Ramban, Avram came twice to Eretz Yisrael. He came one time before Parshas Lech Lecha, even though the story of Bris Ben Abisorim is later on in the Parsha Ben Mukdom Muchabater. Avram left for a short journey. He came to Eretz Yisrael. He had Bris Ben Abisorim when he was 70, and there started the count. The biological clock started ticking as far as the Gzeira, 430 years, and Yitzchok was born later when Avram was 100 years old. And the Goyen says that the Cheshbon is 400. The Goyen doesn't like it. The whole Cheshbon to say, like the Brisa that said, the Olam, he has another Girsa, and the Goyen says, of course, he was sometimes between Avram Avinu being 75 years old and 86 years old, like 11 years, and where Shmuel was born when Avram was 86 years of age. And the Goyen goes with the Cheshbon, the 430 years start with an Isayon of Nimrod, wanted to burn Avram in the Eish. That was in Choron. Avram never came to Eretz Yisrael. The Goyen thinks on the whole Cheshbon. Obal Koponim, it comes out that the Lazarach or Nosati es Oretz Azois is that's the Pasuk, not the Pasuk Lazarach or Eten. So it comes out, we spoke about the Machlekes Sorei Avram and Roy Eloit. Eretz Yisrael was not really given to Avram. It says Lazarach or Eten in the Osid. But the Zarach and Nosati, there's a chilik between when the promise was Lazarach or Eten or Lazarach or Nosati. And therefore, the question is, that's where the Machlekes Roy Avram and Roy Eloit, we're married in that, and we went weiter if Taisis, the whole shtickle of Taisis, if it is Murzekes, what does it make? Does it make him a real Chazoker or not a real Chazoker? We went through the Mishnah Melech that goes through that there's a different kind of Murzekes Elolim Aveseinu, that being that it's it's not a Chazoker Gemura, and therefore there will be enough community with a certain dinim, and this is it for Weiter. We go on Weiter, and the story of the Yeshua, Asis the Malach V'Charber Shlufa B'Yodoi, and the question is, how is Yeshua Mishtachaveh to that Malach? L'chura, it's a mazik, and it says the question, how is he making Ishtachavo? Even the Mus Malach Hashor says the Isser Ishtachavo even to a Malach, and how is he Mishtachaveh? We brought down different, we brought the Rekanati, we brought Sefer Ikorim. If it's Melubush B'Tzuras Odom, there's no Isser Ishtachavo, or if he's a Shliach Hashem, there's no Isser Ishtachavo, or we brought down a very long run in Dorsha Saran. The Ran says Yeshua knew that the Malach was, it says Ki Shmi Bekir Boy, and this Malach was a special Malach, Shmi Bekir Boy, Matatra, and he has a din like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it doesn't go to the Isser of Ishtachavot Malach. Is different. We continued on and carried on weiter that just the Ramban, just to go through the Ramban says that the whole time Moshe led Klal Yisrael to Midbar, there wasn't a Malach Sar Tzova Elechimoyim, because Moshe was, the Ramban calls him Memale Mekoimoy. Okay? And therefore, when Moshe comes into Michoel, Amalek says, Vayakash Yori Moshe is Yoda Begorema. Moshe did not need any support of any malachim during the Tukuf of Moshe Rabbeinu, whereby in Yeshua you needed, and the Ramban Shita is that the Malach was Malach Gavriel, the Sar Tzova, who came to assist him in all the wars to capture Eretz Yisrael, was a Malach Gavriel, and that's the Malach, the Charbo Shlufa B'Yodei, where Yeshua encounters, and that's the Malach Gavriel. We went and continued on weiter and talking about the Motzer and Yerichoi. We started Perek Vav, and Perek Vav is discussing the Motzer and Yerichoi, and they were Mesoy of the Ir Yerichoi, and the seventh day, what was the seventh day? The seventh day, Tesis brings down in Menachos that the seventh day was on Shabbos, and there were Maschil to be Mesoiviv on Chav Beis Nisan. We're talking 12 days after they come into Eretz Yisrael. By the time they went to the Gilgal, they came back, they built a Mishkan in the Gilgal, they were Mazeh, they were Matayr, they were Makav Korban Pesach, they made a Milah, they spent home 7 days with their families in Gilgal, in Avos Yerichoi, and they were there, and they were day after Pesach, on a Sunday morning, they started with Mesei of Yericho and Shabbos, Chav Ches, Nisan, Shabbos, and Tesis comes in with a chap, with a cheshbon, even though it says that you don't say Tziduk Kadim B'Shab, Moshe Rabbeinu. The reason why you say Tziduk Kadim, Moshe Rabbeinu died Shabbos afternoon. Tesis brings down Shittas Againim, and Tesis Akasha, if Chav Ches Nisan was a Shabbos, so if you go backwards with the calendar, comes out Moshe Rabbeinu was not nifter on Shabbos, but was nifter on Erev Shabbos. Al Kaponim, the dates are definitive. Chav Beis Nisan, they start the Motzer on Shabbos, on Chav Ches Nisan, that Shabbos, they are capturing, and the B'choim of Yericho falls. And there is a whole story in the Psukim as far as the Tkiyah of the Shofars. Why are they Tkiyah the Shofars? The halacha is that the truth of the matter is a mitzvah of Tkiyah b'chatzitzos. Every time is a mitzvah l'mikra eido, in mitzvah sakol, l'mikra eido, whenever you have to call in the people, the halacha is you have to be Tkiyah b'chatzitzos. And every time they gather the people together, they're Tkiyah b'chatzitzos. Okay? And the question is, this Tkiyah is Doicha Shabbos or it's not Doicha Shabbos. So, the question is here, when we come into Yericho, Tesis brings down, the Ram brings down, that he saw in Chuvas Hagoinim that is a minya inyan to be Tekeya B'taniyos B'shofar. And the question is, he says that, the question is, do we have Chatzitzos Ein Shofar or Chatzitzos without Shofar? Is a whole sugya in Yerushalmi. The Ram brings down that if you are, the Ram wants to be mechalik, if it's taniyas, it's Sorav Yisrael, you masriya besoifer, and not bechatzitzos. And the question is, do we have, besides the shofar, do we need a chatzitzos or not? It's a mei machlikas yishayim. The question is, in Milchemes Yehoshua here in Kibush Yericho, there was definitely all the tnoim were met in order to be mechuyev in tkiyah b'chatzitzos. And we do not find in the psukim here, we do not find any tkiyah b'chatzitzos. Yeshua only blows in shofar. What happened to the chatzitzos? Okay, and there's a shtickle Torah from the Avnei Nezer. The Avnei Nezer comes along with his famous shtickle Torah that there is an afkamina between a milchama which was initiated by Klal Yisrael lechatchila, and a milchama that Tsar haba aleinu, that the goyim started the milchama against Klal Yisrael. And he says the difference is that when Tsar haba, when you have an akum which is coming and he's Tsar and Klal Yisrael without initiation of any milchama mitzad Klal Yisrael, then the halacha is utkata b'chatzitzos, you're supposed to be tekeya b'chatzitzos. That's what the Avnei Nezer says. Masha'ein kein, Yisrael is coming to be loichem with the goyim. When Klal Yisrael initiates the milchama, they're not being attacked, but the other way around. They are the one who initiating, and therefore there is no mitzvah of tkiyah b'chatzitzos. Therefore, Yeshua here in Milchemes Kibush Haaretz, we don't find that the Anshe Yericho started the war with Klal Yisrael. We have to know if it holds ground in all the So Shiloh and Minchas Chinuch, what happened? Klal Yisrael started a war, and now we have a prolonged, rolling, developing story of a war throughout all those years. Sheva Shekipshu, and they come to a certain place, and the goy's mouth, like we see in Milchemes Midian, we'll see later on. The question is that called Atzor Eschem because Klal Yisrael initiated the war L'Chatchila, and they are part of the whole 7-year war. There's some places where they attacked Klal Yisrael. That suffices, and that calls Tzar Atzor Eschem. Or since you were the one who started up, it's called Yisrael, this Teikef, the Akum, and not the Akum Teikef Yisrael. Therefore, according to the Avnei Nezer, it doesn't warrant Tkiyeh B'Chatzitzos. The problem is that if you look in the Sifri, the Rambam in Luchas Tainis quotes the Sifri, it says, B'feish, V'chi tovoyu milchoma be'artzachem, b'mashma, ben shatem yoitzim aleim, ben shem yoitzim aleichem. It says clearly and precisely that the mitzvah of Tkiyeh B'Chatzitzos doesn't make any nafkamine who initiates the war, which is explicitly not the halacha of the shtickle Torah of the Avnei Nezer. The Medrash comes along and says that theoretically, it says the Medrash, there's a sefer called Panach Raza, and he brings a Medrash. It's one of the Rishonim, and he brings a Medrash. Asel Choshtei Chatzitzros. It says L'chol Tzorkecho Ukshemeis Moshe Nignaz V'lo Hoyo B'mal Le'esef Es Yisrael V'raya Lo Zeh Kshetzor Al Yericho Le'motzinu Ki'im Shefres. Okay, and it says B'kitzos, he's asking why it was Nignaz. Why didn't Yeshua make Nu Chatzitzos? And he didn't say Lord comes along and says V'shema Ulai Hoyus Hoyro Shol Niskoya B'Chatzitzos. In other words, Yeshua should have really there's no reason. According to one teretz, he says that Be'emes he redid it, they did Tkiyeh B'Chatzitzos. And the question is, we'll deal in a minute. According to the second one, there was a rush not to be Tkiyeh B'Chatzitzos. The question, according to those opinions, and brought down in many Rishonim, Panach himself brings in the first teretz, that there really was yet Tkiyeh B'Chatzitzos. So the question is, how come we don't find in the Psukim any mention of these Chatzitzos which were Tekeyah? So the Medrash says, Asel Choshtei Chatzitzos, Kishiyu Lecho, this is the Medrash Rabbi in Pashas Ba'al Yischo, Kemelech, Asel Lecho Mishelcho, Ata Oise, V'lo Yil'achem Mishtamish Bohem. Teido, Sharei Talmido Shel Moshe, Yehoshua Lo Nishtamish Bohem Ela B'Shefres. The Vaistais, there was a Gzeira, there was a Halacha, there was a Tzivui of being Goynes, the Chatzitzos, and nobody else has the Chatzitzos. I would like to just say the following. The Ramban, who comes along and says, mentions a word, the Avnei Nezer himself brings down, the Lashon Ramban is the question how to learn the Ramban. V'lo yodati im lo yidiktaku b'lshonom, oy she'ein chatzotzos elo b'milchemes oivim atzorim melchem ba'aretz. And the question is, does it mean Takad Avnei Nezer that if the war is initiated by Klal Yisrael, there is no din Tkiyeh B'Chatzitzos, or the din is only Milchemes Ba'aretz? It doesn't mean who initiated, but it said the reason why Milchemes Midian you didn't need Chatzitzos is because the Milchemes Midian was in Ever Hayard in Midian. It wasn't Kibbush Haaretz, it wasn't Kibbush Haaretz by Midian. Therefore, there is no din Tkiyeh B'Chatzitzos. The chiluk between Tkiyah Shefer, we spoke about it in length, between the Tkiyah Shefer, there is a difference between the function of the Shefer and the function of the Chatzitzur. By mitzvah's Tkiyah Shefer, the halacha is, and there's many nafkaminis, lishmoya kol Shefer. The mitzvah is to hear. In Rosh Hashanah, you see, we make it Tkiyah Shefer, the Baruch HaShem, Kedishon Mitzvah, so we will not Tkiyah Shefer, but lishmoya kol Shefer. The Tkiyah in Chatzitzros, vice contrary, when a person does the Tkiyah b'Chatzitzros, the Tkiyah is the mitzvah, not the Shmiya, but the Tkiyah is the mitzvah. And the reason why the Goyen says that when a person is blowing shofar be'ez tzara, what he is actually doing, he has a pain, he has a ke'ev. And the ke'ev is like a ze'oko. And therefore, is Tkiyah shofar of tzara, that's what the Goyen says, is a tkiya to cry and not like the tkiya of Rosh Hashanah. In shofar itself, there is a chiluk. If you tekeya bishas the mitzvah tkiya shofar, the mitzvah is the shmoya, or you just shry. It's a way of making a ze'akas of the goyim. Therefore, that tkiya, the tkiya is the tkiya like chatzaitzes. The tkiya is a tkiya for the east tzara is the actual tkiya. Maral says, Maral says that be'emes there is a basic fundamental daf of kemina between shofar and chatzaitzes. Chatzaitzes is a man-made material. A person takes a gush, chatzaitzes kesef, chatzaitzes zov, whatever the gush is. He takes a kesef tohor, pure silver, and he melts it, and he makes it tzur v'chatzaitzes. Whereby, says the Maharal, the shofar is a keren shen ayil. Keren shen ayil is really made by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a not a human-made shofar, but the shofar is all you do by shofar is you mishaper the keren in order to make it to you. Shofar is you take it, you cut it off the keren of the ayil, and you are using it for a shofar. Says there Maharal, there is a major nafkamina between the tkufa of Moshe Rabbeinu and the tkufa of Yehoshua. Moshe Rabbeinu is the tkufa where Klal Yisrael is getting together. You unifying Klal Yisrael. They are becoming a nation, says the Maharal. And when the uvihoyu misgabshim, like a gibush, liyos am ve'uma losha the Maharal. Therefore, it's like b'niya of chatzaitzur. The chatzaitzur is you take a chomer, you take a material which is Klal Yisrael, and you basically are melting them in the kura hituch of melting Klal Yisrael down. That's the tkufa of chatzaitzur, says the Maharal, whereby when Klal Yisrael already became a nation, when Rabbeinu dies, the Anhoga goes over to Yeshua bin Nun. And when the Anhoga goes over to Yeshua bin Nun after 40 years in the Midbar, the Klal Yisrael was already melted down to become a kura hituch of Klal Yisrael. All Yeshua has to be is to shapru ma'aseichem. He has to be meshaper them. And therefore, in the tkufa that you're supposed to be meshaper them, and not a tkufa of the making them, formatting them into an am. Therefore, the mitzvah is a mitzvah of tkiyas shofar and not of tkiyas chatzaitzos. Therefore, says the Maharal, we only find that tkufa. Again, it's pending if there was a chatzaitzos according to some Rishonim and some midrashim. There were really chatzaitzos for some reason they're not mentioned. But the Pashtas and the Midrashim that say that Yeshua bin Nun really did not use the Tkiya b'chatzaitzres, and the whole Tkiya was a Tkiya of Shofar. And therefore, according to Maharal, the reason for that being because the Tkufa of Moshe is a Tkufa of using chatzaitzres, which is melting them, taking a raw material and formatting them into a chatzaitzre, into a kli which is melted and made by man-made, whereby when Klal Yisrael is already megubash to be a am and a uma, like the Maharal says, and they're already melted, all you have to do is perfect them. All you have to do is be mishaper ma'aseichem. Then you know that kufa is not a kufa of shofar chatzaitzros. Therefore, Milchemes Yericho is a kufa of shofar.